Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching me, Tom Colohue, senior journalist here at Sportskeeda, and you're watching on the Sportskeeda Facebook and YouTube pages simultaneously because we live in a wonderful world where technology can actually do that. Today, as per usual, every single week, we will be doing the WWE Raw Preview. If you're watching Raw tonight, this is a great place to break down what is going to be happening or what is likely to happening with a bit of speculation and a lot of questions answered. Recently, we've been going for a good hour, which is great because originally we would go for 15, 20 minutes and that will be all of the questions. But now we have so many regulars, so many people dropping in, so many people clicking like and love, which means even more people drop in. I got to say, SK Live so far has been a tremendous success, and that is thanks hugely to everyone who jumps in on these videos. I'm going to start with the Raw preview. Recently, we haven't been able to finish it because I get so many questions, but I'm going to start by talking about what is going on with Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre. This, for me, feels like a very genuine story. It's actually really well told, I feel, and a good way to introduce Keith Lee as someone who doesn't take this sort of nonsense. What has been happening is essentially when Drew McIntyre is not involved, Keith Lee is getting big wins. Big wins. He got the big win against Randy Orton at Payback. That was huge for him and his career going forwards. He also was involved in a triple threat. He destroyed Dolph Ziggler. And while he didn't win that match, he wasn't pinned either, with Randy Orton pinning Seth Rollins after Rollins took a spirit bomb and took, 5 seconds of powder? Really putting over that spirit bomb. However, when Drew McIntyre is involved, tends to result in DQ finishes because at the moment, Keith Lee's win-loss record is 25% wins and 75% losses. That's his first 4 matches. Crazy, crazy thing. Obviously, we're not supposed to focus on that particularly, but it is what it is, and that is where we are. Tonight, we are going to see Drew McIntyre go one-on-one with Keith Lee to determine what the hell is going on there. And once again, I strongly suspect it's going to be a DQ loss, which would take his win record to 20%, because I believe Orton will be getting involved, play the Drew McIntyre role of dragging someone out of the ring. And really, at this point, it feels very much like they have built Keith Lee purely to be a spoiler in the Drew McIntyre Randy Orton storyline, because the Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre storyline is set to go for a while yet. So the whole Legend Killer revival, Shawn Michaels coming back, and the like, everything with Ric Flair, was designed to keep Randy and Drew McIntyre out of the ring as much as possible. Whereas now Keith Lee seems to be playing that role because they don't want to spoil it too much by having them constantly fighting and just spoil the enjoyment of that, as it were. Thank you to the 127 people currently in. Please do remember to click like or love on this as it helps to grow our audience here. I'm going to start answering some questions and then hopefully I can get through them quickly enough to get back to the Raw preview. I will not be holding my breath. Nick Fun said, is Carmella really the mysterious woman? It looks extremely likely, yes. I can't say for certain. I don't think anyone can say for certain. But the strongest belief is that it will be Carmella. There's some hammering next door. I apologize if anyone can hear it. I have closed my window in case the ice cream van comes by. Hopefully the microphone doesn't pick it up too much, but it is 5 in the afternoon here, so I'm not going to tell anyone off for doing some hammering. When it comes to Carmella, I did get news that these particular vignettes were coming. I only got it from one source, so I put a tease up. I saw another journalist do a post of Emma because they had information about Emma. So I put a post up about Emmalina because that seemed to connect really well and be a nice tease, because I know if anyone does follow me on Twitter, I don't really spoil things, but I like to tease and have a bit of fun. So putting that up, knowing that there was a new version, like a Carmella Lena possibly, that was exciting and a lot of fun for me. AK Ray says, hi, Tom, how are you? I'm good, thank you. Welcome to the video. I hope you yourself are good as well. Zama says, hi, Tom, are you good? Same response. I'm very good, thank you. Really do enjoy these streams. Glad to see a new face as well, and hope you are well too. Riju Dasgupta says, if you were to get beaten up by one member of the Mysterio family, whom would you choose? Well, I dare say the mother is not exactly swinging that kendo stick with much force, so that might be a safe bet. But really, probably Reign right now, because he's only swinging with his left arm because of his tricep. Definitely not Dominic. Definitely not Dominic. That man can swing a kendo stick. Pratya Ghosh says, when will we officially find out who's in Retribution? I believe it will be after the draft, closer to Survivor Series time, at which point people will start being unmasked. We're going to start seeing the t-shirts very soon, though. They will be appearing on WWE Shop in no time at all. AK Ray says, if I was to wear a wrestling attire, what will I choose? I have a number of wrestling shirts. I have worn quite a lot of them on this. I sort of more often than not, I'll wear my Bray Wyatt t-shirt, Era of Wyatt on the back when he was first WWE champion. I have 3 different Seth Rollins t-shirts. I'm a Seth Rollins mark. I have an AJ Styles and Seth Rollins belt buckle, which are quite fancy. I like those. But my most worn wrestling t-shirt is my Alexa Bliss t-shirt. I also have a Shinsuke Nakamura one, but it's very gaudy and red, so I don't wear that much. But my Alexa Bliss t-shirt has become my airport t-shirt, because every time I wear it, even if someone doesn't know Alexa Bliss, they look at it and think, oh, it's Harley Quinn. And it just eases a thing, because I'm always quite nervous going to an airport as to who's going to pat me down, who's going to check me. I just feel that's awkward for them. But if I'm wearing a t-shirt like that, typically people call me over and be like, oh, that's good. People are people. Emily Zapata says Steel Cage, Seth Rollins, and Dominic Mysterio. Yeah, they're escalating this feud again. It is cranking up. So, for anyone who doesn't know, tonight on Raw, Seth Rollins and Dominic Mysterio will face each other once again, this time in a steel cage. They've had a street fight, a wrestling match, and a steel cage so far, and Buddy Murphy has had a street fight as well. They aren't really giving Dominic many chances to actually just have a standard wrestling match, but every time he's been in the ring, he's been fantastic. So I think this will be another interesting way of doing it. I think Dominic is going to jump off the top of the cage. Genuinely think that. And really, when it comes to a winner, whoever wins, and I strongly believe it's going to be Dominic Mysterio this time, with Buddy Murphy sort of interfering accidentally to prevent Seth from winning. Whoever does that, I feel this really has to be the end of it now, because this has gone and gone and gone. Michael Kanata says, hey, Tom, great job. I have my own podcast as well. Maybe I can get you as a guest. If you send me a DM on Twitter, we can do some research, see what your audience is, and maybe work something out. Anand Vazwani says, there are plans of moving Otis to Raw to try and catch it on Drew. Possible. With Mandy Rose moving, I certainly was not aware of that coming up, but I don't believe that Mandy Rose and Otis are going to be separate for too long. I believe in the draft, Heavy Machinery are going to move over to Raw, but I believe it's very possible that Drew is going to move over to SmackDown. So who could say? But the briefcase would transfer if he moved to Raw. Cameron M. Mangan says, is The Rock versus Reigns at Mania likely? I wouldn't say likely at the moment, certainly a possibility. And I think it's more likely with no fans than it is with fans. Because at the moment, The Rock can't have his usual filming schedule for Hollywood, and that's been the thing preventing them in the past. Kishan Prasad says, why did WWE split Otis and Mandy? Storyline reasons. Mandy's been moved purely for storyline reasons. It gives Otis a bit more, as well as gives Asuka potentially a new challenger over on Raw. Bobby Brunn says, how many characters are going to be in WWE 2K Battlegrounds? At first, a smaller amount, but over the course of it, they will eventually pretty much have every wrestler in the world. There are apparently plans to have creator wrestlers, and that means you'll be able to download your Kenny Omegas, as has been tradition in past people creating them for Battlegrounds. I don't know how it's going to play out and how close they're going to be, but we'll see how it goes. Kishin says, why wasn't Seth Rollins in last week's Raw? He had the night off, and it allowed them to use the storyline a bit differently for Buddy Murphy. Buddy, for me, came out a lot more face last week than he has in the weeks previous. So I'm excited there. But not everyone works every week. Seth Rollins had a week off. He was able to essentially take 2 weeks off because of the way they're filming shows at the moment, and spend some time with Becky. So why not? Reggie says, do you think Angel Garza will hit on Mandy Rose? Absolutely, I do. If you think to yourself, what is Angel Garza's type? Mandy Rose definitely fits the bill. And I think when it comes to Angel Garza's type, the best way to describe it is a woman. Because he's hit on a lot of variety of women so far. Which, man's a Lothario. Credit to him for trying. But if they're not interested, they're not interested. Like with Charlie, she's interested. And she's very interested. Go for it. Have fun. Brett Yegosh says, why have t-shirts for Retribution on the store? Doesn't it go against storyline of them being overlooked, etc.? Yes, it does. But a lot of people are very happy about that design that they made. I'm confident the design would not have been made if t-shirts weren't coming. And yeah, t-shirts are coming. Nick Fun says, is her business recruiting a female member? I don't believe there is anyone lined up at the moment. However, there are a number of people that MVP still wants to work with. I don't necessarily believe there's going to be female in that group, particularly at the moment where they're still working in a very small, quite contained division. Once they break out of that division, who can tell? But when you look at the women on Raw, there's not that many people I believe would fit very well with the Hurt Business. Zelina Vega's elsewhere. Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott are tied up. I think Ruby Riott may have played very well in that role, but she's tied up in a tag title feud. Shayna Baszler will probably be a best bet, but I don't think she needs a faction. Hard to say. Carter Carey says, what is the best case scenario for Roman and Bray's feud? Hold it off and get it over with at a big show like Hell in a Cell, Rumble, or Mania, or stretch it out on special occasions over the years like Taker's long-term arc with Shawn and Triple H? It's a good question. When it comes to the feud between Roman and Bray, that is always supposed to be the key feud for both men. They are supposed to be the greatest of rivals, even though Roman has had longer feuds and really at times more intense feuds with Brock Lesnar, for example, and Bray and Braun have a lot going on. Roman and Bray were supposed to be the best of enemies. Now, what happens next really depends on the draft, because we saw this last year where Bray Wyatt walked into Hell in a Cell and the expectation was that he was going to beat Seth Rollins and Seth Rollins was going to move to SmackDown, and then that didn't happen. What happened was Bray Wyatt moved to SmackDown, so he couldn't win that match, and they had to work some way around later on. When it comes to Roman and Bray, if either of them are changing brand, the match will take place at Hell in a Cell. If either of them are not changing brand, chances are they will leave it until later in the year. I believe Royal Rumble is highly likely, but WrestleMania is also possible. AK Ray says, if Roman comes to Raw, who is he most likely to start a feud with? Well, he can feud with a number of people. I think Kevin Owens is the ideal candidate right there. I think there's also people like Apollo Crews, Aleister Black, and there's quite a few people, even though there aren't that many faces at the top level at the moment outside of Drew McIntyre, there are still people who could be elevated to that position, because of the people who've had a championship shot so far, because Drew McIntyre is a face, it's been primarily heels. Whereas, let's say Dominic Mysterio gets a title shot against Roman Reigns. I wouldn't expect him to win it, but why not? I think that'd be a very interesting match as well. And it depends who else comes over also. If, for example, Adam Cole comes up from NXT in the draft, there's a feud that's built to last. I do not know how to pronounce your name, and to be honest, I'm not even going to try. Please do let me know the pronunciation a bit later on in the comments if I need to say it. I'll happily say it if you can help me to pronounce it. As why Bray Wyatt didn't get a rematch against Roman. There are no automatic rematch clauses anymore. However, Bray Wyatt versus Roman Reigns is still very much in the pipeline. It's just endgame. Teddy Burgess says, you think anyone will beat Ric Flair's champion title belt run? I do. I have reported previously that John Cena has no interest in overtaking Ric Flair and becoming the sole highest record holder for, world championships. Randy Orton, however, does have Ric Flair's blessing. But I believe the next person to, there's the ice cream fan, the next person to have the record amount of world titles will be Charlotte Flair. That's what I personally believe. Bobby Brunn says, any Money in the Bank matches? There will be Money in the Bank matches, but that pay-per-view is a while away, and there is a lot of things in flux at the moment. Very few storylines are set in stone right now because there is so much constant change going on. And it's very difficult for me to come in here and say this is going to happen, when in reality it could very shortly be changed, especially with a draft coming up. There is too much influx. It's no longer the case of when Brock Lesnar was the Money in the Bank holder. And I said during the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, Brock Lesnar is cashing in tonight and he will have a rematch with Seth Rollins at SummerSlam. I could say that. Right now it's harder to say. I reported that Brock Lesnar was due to come in at SummerSlam, and I'm getting heat for that now because obviously he didn't. World's a crazy place. Panther fan says, so Murphy costs Seth the match, allowing Dominic to escape the cage. Would be an interesting way to kick their feud off. That is what I believe will happen, yes. Pain Wrestling said, could The Fiend get drafted to Raw to visit Seth Rollins? He certainly could. Pretty much anyone could be drafted at this point. Decisions have not been finalized. Anand Vaswani says, is there a chance of Team Retribution versus Team Raw versus Team SmackDown on Survivor Series? Or like last year, there would be NXT versus Raw versus SmackDown. I can report that the plan at the moment is to have Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. Retribution will feature in some capacity, but they will not be on a team in their own. They will be on the Raw side. Mike Eaton says, do you feel Titus O'Neil will be a better fit for the Hurt Business after seeing him fighting on Raw Underground than Cedric Alexander? Once again, apologies for the ice cream fan. I think Cedric Alexander suits the Hurt Business just fine. I think Titus O'Neil wouldn't necessarily be bad for the Hurt Business, but I think he's sort of a leader in his own right. And I don't feel making him heel works with his character. Not necessarily with his character, but with his personality. Titus O'Neil is a fantastic ambassador for the WWE, but they don't really keep him in the ring that often. So it was nice to see him, at least in some capacity, in Raw Underground, but we haven't seen him since. Raw Underground is being pre-taped at the moment. A lot of stuff is being left on the cutting room floor. when it comes to it, they are editing it together, and then later on in the day, when Vince McMahon looks over it, there are changes made, and Shane has no real control over that, unfortunately. AK Ray says, is Ring of Honor an underrated promotion? They've given many dream matches at very regular interval. And do you have any idea about Dalton Castle status? I do not know about Dalton Castle status at the moment. I'm a big fan of Dalton Castle. I have met the man. He wiped his hand down my glasses after a match, and I couldn't see afterwards. Awkward. So the man lives his gimmick, and I respect that a lot. When it comes to Ring of Honor and what they are able to deliver, it's very high quality, and I really enjoy their super shows with New Japan, for example, but it's one of the promotions, unfortunately, I just don't have time to make a big deal for, because there is so much other wrestling that I watch. When there is a big match, I tend to drop in. I wouldn't necessarily say underrated, because it does hold a very special place in the hearts of many, but maybe they don't get the attention they deserve at times. Nick Fun says, what is Seth Rollins saying about Buddy Murphy losing to Dominic? Well, we're going to find out. I suspect he won't be talking to Buddy Murphy. Maybe we'll get a backstage segment whereby Buddy Murphy tries to talk to Seth and he gets shunned, but I don't think he'll want Buddy Murphy to come down to the ring with him for the cage match. Jeremy Young says Big E will beat Roman at Mania next year. I have no issue with that. I would love to see that. I do not think it's happening. Bright Ghost says, could we see any top guys or girls move to Raw in the draft? Any update on if Undisputed Era will be called up this time? I've reported previously about problems with call-ups for Undisputed Era. I'm not aware that anything is planned at the moment. When it comes to top people moving for the draft, very possible. There really is a situation now whereby anything could happen for the draft. I have spoken about the possibility of Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre swapping places. One thing we can say with confidence is that there will be people called up from NXT, and that will change the dynamic of Survivor Series, which is Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. Once again, apologies, I cannot pronounce your name. What's going to happen to the Thunderdome if live fans come back? The Thunderdome will be spaced out. So we will have a couple of rows of Thunderdome, and then we'll have several rows of fans. It is limited capacity. If they do come back, there will eventually be live fans back, but the WWE is going to be negotiating the Amway Center contract in October to try and get a limited capacity in 10%, 20%, whatever it takes. Vatzel asked, what are the plans with Otis and his Money in the Bank briefcase? Could he lose it to John Morrison or someone else? The plans are completely up in the air. They've been changed a lot. They are not what they originally planned to be. Outside of that, it's really hard to say, especially now that Mandy Rose has been moved. So he may be moving as well. Really hard to say. Willie R. Brewer says, will Sasha Banks ever be back? Yes, she'll be back this Friday, which has been clarified by someone in the chat. Thank you as well. Pain Wrestling says, Carmella, the mysterious woman that's returning to SmackDown. That is the most heavily rumored and the most likely. I believe it is. Rick Uccino, welcome, Rick. What is your favorite thing to get from the ice cream truck? I like a rocket lolly. I like a zap. I don't know if many people in the US know what a zap lolly is, but it's a lolly of free layers. See, we call them ice lollies. I don't know what you guys call them in the US, but we call them ice lollies, which is a hard phrase to say, lolly. I'm not a big ice cream guy, though. Like, I'm genuinely not. I have a tub of ice cream in my freezer right now that I'll just pick out, and it's caramel and honeycomb. The best of flavors. Peter Roberts says, will Roman Reigns be drafted to WWE Raw? Possibly. Kishan Prasad says, is WWE rethinking putting the Money in the Bank on Otis? Do they have plans of him losing it to someone else? They are teasing that possibility. I've been in the opinion for quite a while now that if Otis does try and cash in, particularly on SmackDown, he will lose his attempted cash in, which would be a really bad situation for everyone involved. So my suspicion is that he may be moved across and can challenge there. But at the moment, particularly after he took the time off that he did, it is unlikely that he will be cashing in anytime soon. Anand says, plans for Keith Lee. Currently, he is being sandwiched between Drew and Orton. That is correct. I did talk about this at the beginning, but I'll reiterate here. At the moment, Keith Lee, rumors are he's going to be pushed to the moon. However, at the moment, he seems to be very much just making sure that Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton are constantly in the ring at the same time. He seems to be a means to an end, and that's not a great position to be in. At the moment, his win record is 25% on the main roster. That's 3 losses and 1 win. If, as is likely to happen tonight, Randy Orton interferes in the match with Drew McIntyre, that win record will become 20%, which is 1 win and 4 losses. I cannot call that push to the moon. I honestly can't. Thank you for helping me out there, pronounce the man. My question is, what's going to happen to the Thunderdome when live fans come back? I did actually clarify that a bit earlier on. I'm guessing Yeah, I'm 4 minutes behind in my questions. Please do bear with me. I will try and catch up as much as possible. We do get a lot of questions asked here. I will get to your question. If you can, please bear with me instead of asking the same question twice. But I do appreciate you telling me how to pronounce your name. We have 79 people here. Thank you very much for sticking with me and waiting for your questions to be answered. Please do remember, if you have just joined, to click like or love. That does help keep the numbers up here and keep questions coming in. Mia Pop says, oh, thank you. What do you think about Clash of Champions pay-per-view? Will Orton win the title? I do not believe Orton will win the title. I think this feud will continue to go until Hell in a Cell. I have reported that that is the plan. Aussie, welcome. Says, happy Mirror Day, and happy Mirror Day to yourself. Akinesh, please let me know if I mispronounce any names. What will happen if Clash of Champions? Will Orton win? I just got that question from Mia Pops. To reiterate, I do not believe Orton will win at Clash of Champions. I believe he will go into a match once again at Hell in a Cell. Pain Wrestling says, Mia Yim and Mercedes are confirmed to be drafted to Monday Night Raw, right? They've not been officially confirmed. However, they have been appearing on Raw for the past few weeks under the masks of Retribution, so they are there. Brian McFarlane says, it may take me a while to read this one. You see Murphy snapping on Rollins, breaking tables, breaking announce tables. You're supposed to motivate me. I was supposed to be a leader. I lost to Dominic. Would this be a good write-off for Seth as he takes off, have Murphy be the new Messiah? It would not be a bad write-off. However, to my knowledge, Seth Rollins will still be on TV until November, December time. Probably November. That is when he is expected to start taking time off. So it'll be a little while yet. He's got a month and a half, roughly. Johnny Lee says, do you see Scarlett competing in ring competition in NXT? I do. However, she won't be for a while. She will be taking the time off with Karrion Kross. When she does come into the ring, she will be used quite similarly to Candice LeRae, who was essentially Johnny Gargano's wife for a while and was just playing that role, then came into her own as a wrestler. Zelina Vega, much the same. She was just Andrade's manager, would then come into her role as a wrestler. We are seeing her wrestle a little bit more now, and I am happy whenever I see her wrestle. Her appearance at Evolution, her appearance in the Royal Rumble, they were very good. Very good. Ozzy Medaros says, is Mandy going to be part of the Miss storyline? She already is. He has kicked her off the show. Brock Clinton says, who will take the WWE Universal Championship away from Roman Reigns if he got drafted to Raw? I'm not sure. I'm really not. I don't know if he's going to get drafted. I don't know who's going to be top level there, and I don't know how long he's going to be champion. It's really hard to say. Austin Palmiter says, I see Tessa Blanchard dropping the belt Saturday. Could that mean she's going to WWE? It could mean that. There is no guarantee that it does. However, if she goes to WWE, she would be signing a contract that is exclusive to WWE, and she would have to drop any previous titles. I've reported previously, I believe she is going to the WWE. The reason I believe that is because I have been told repeatedly that there are people backstage singing her praises, trying to get people to sign her. Ozzy Medora says, the ice cream truck went by again. Yes, it did. Naresh Cannon said, do you think they will give Keith Lee a win over Drew? I do not. Personally, I think he will get a DQ loss because of interference from Randy Orton. Kishan Prasad said, what was the latest plan that was scrapped about Otis cashing in? It's impossible to say. Plans have been changed. I couldn't say what the latest one is because the latest one is the current one. So it's really hard to say. Things have changed several times. That's what I've been told. Jean-Mick Gossel says, Xbox Series X or PS5? Well, at the moment, I'm very much a Sony man. Sorry about that. I have been pretty much Sony since the PS4. I did not buy a PS3. I sort of fell out of love with gaming for a long time. I didn't buy anything between PS2 and PS4. Final Fantasy X is the last game I can really remember buying of that ilk, as it were. And then I saw a trailer for the game The Last of Us, which was PS3, PS4 exclusive. I got the PS4 for the HD edition of Last of Us, and I believe that is the greatest piece of media I've ever experienced. So I'm a bit of a Sony man. Bobby Bruns, I'm not going to read that because the person you're referring to cannot possibly come back, and I believe you know that. If you keep asking it, I will have to kick you out. AK Ray says, WWE was high on Riddle when he was drafted. Now his push is halted and he was a one pinned. Could the same happen with Keith Lee? Absolutely, it could. Absolutely. We have seen people report that Keith Lee is due for a major push. And at the moment, he's in there with the big guys, but he's not getting any wins. He's got one big win over Randy Orton. Yes, that's the focus. But if he doesn't get the win tonight, that is a 20% win record. That's not great. And I know that they have storyline reasons for this, but it's still not a great look. And my concern is that he will get pushed down the card pretty much immediately after Clash of Champions. That said, I do think Keith Lee versus Bobby Lashley is a great feud. Great feud, and I would like to see it. I can just said, what about Jeff Hardy's push? Hard to say. When it comes to the triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, I don't see Jeff Hardy winning. I believe Sami Zayn is going to win that one. I believe Jeff Hardy was given the Intercontinental Championship when he was, essentially as a way of lining up a face for a feud with Sami Zayn. To my knowledge, Jeff Hardy has not signed a new contract at this time, and to my knowledge, there is no intention for Jeff Hardy to sign a new contract at this time. He is currently working on time that has been added due to injury, and after that, we will have to see what he does next. But what I will say is that it's very rare that we see Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy separate for very long. Like Shay says, what was the last time there was a successful NXT call-up on the main roster? It depends how you define successful. I look at Andrade, I look at Aleister Black, and I think they've been successes. I really do. I think they've done great work. But it really depends what you consider success. When you debut in NXT, you will debut with a loss. So someone who starts in NXT rarely starts successfully, with the outside exception of real misnomers like Karrion Kross, who was pushed straight away. Now, when someone comes up from NXT, are they unsuccessful if they debut with a loss? Because that's how it works in NXT. You can't just immediately become a world champion every single time. Not everyone. You can't have Matt Riddle walk in, become champion, Keith Lee walk in, become champion, Adam Cole walk in, become champion, because then no one actually gets a chance to prove themselves outside of 3 or 4 weeks when they're initially called up. So I would say Andrade has been a success. I would say Kevin Owens was a massive success when he came up. There are a number of people who have come up recently who I do consider successes. Aleister Black was a big one. Shayna Baszler has taken a while to get going, but now she has got going. She's looking quite successful as well. RH Pavel says, nice catching you live here. Welcome, RH. Nice to see you. Anand says, update on Charlotte Flair. Well, she did point out recently that she would not have to wait until that it was unlikely she would miss next year's WrestleMania. I believe we are likely to see her later this year, early next year. However, I do not have any inside information on that one. They're keeping it close to the chest. AK Ray says Mercedes versus Shayna would be nice in future. Agree with that. I think we will see that at some point relatively soon, given that they are both on Raw at the moment. Subash says update on the WWE draft. There is going to be a WWE draft. I'm going to need you to ask a bit more clear questions on this one, because just asking, can you update me on this? I have already mentioned the draft several times in this video. So if you can ask a specific question about the draft, that'll be fine. Ozzy says Mandy is back on Raw. That is correct. She does indeed. Nick Fun says, how often does the ice cream truck come by? It only comes by once, but you hear it first further down the street, and then you hear it right outside my window, unfortunately. So it's just awkward timing, but we are where we are, and this is the time that I stream. Ozzy says, what do you think about Miss Bliss joining the Wyatt family? It's one of the most interesting storylines that there is at the moment in wrestling. I'm really interested in it. And I think it's one of the key components of SmackDown. SmackDown's been very successful recently, very successful. It's got great storylines, that one being one of them, as well as what's going on with Roman Reigns and Sasha Banks and Bayley. They are key storylines, and they are constantly advancing them in small ways. They don't advance all of them at once. They advance all of them at stages. They're being very clever. And that's one of the reasons I really rate SmackDown right now. Pain Wrestling says, I think Sasha Banks is going to take Bayley's belt after Clash of Champions. It seems likely now, particularly with Mandy Rose moving to Raw, that we will get Sasha Banks versus Bayley at Hell in a Cell. At that point, it could be that whoever wins the championship is the one who isn't being drafted. So it really depends if they're being split up. And maybe if Bayley's going to Raw, then Sasha Banks will win. But if Sasha Banks is going back to Raw, then likely Bayley will win. Hard to say. Like Shay says, what was the purpose of Tegan Knox having food with Johnny and his wife in his house? I'm not sure, to be honest. Not sure. I don't follow NXT as regularly as I could. I keep up with the storylines, and this is essentially to further the Knox versus LeRae feud, which is a good way to keep both women on TV. But it looks like Johnny Gargano has been sort of pushed into the background recently. We will see going forward, but it's at least a different way to tell a story. It's nice every now and then to at least try and have a conversation, because I feel that when it comes to wrestling, everyone just immediately goes to, let's have a fight, when sometimes I'd like people to sit down and just become friends. I really would. Brock Clinton says, any update on Lars Sullivan's WWE return? Nothing. There is no update. There is no information. Nobody's been able to get any information about Lars Sullivan. All I can say is that he is still with the company. James McCrossan says, my question is, when is the WWE Draft and when do you see Big Show and the other legends who Orton attacked returning? I can't see the legends in question returning to attack Randy Orton. I think their storyline with him is done. Big Show returns sporadically. Shawn Michaels returns when he is needed. Same with Christian. There is a number of people who have been involved who possibly could be involved in future, but they won't be involved in the same capacity with Randy Orton. The WWE Draft is rumored to be in October. However, the WWE will wait until they have renegotiated their contract with the Amway Center. Firstly, to see if they're still at the Amway Center because they may have to move out at the end of October. And secondly, to see if they can get fans in. Nirav says, what's the latest news on Brock? Will he return at Hell in a Cell? Latest news is that he can't return at Hell in a Cell. He is not currently under contract. Latest news is simply that. That's the last update I've been able to give on that. AEW, to my knowledge, are not interested. People are saying no comment, specifically Tony Khan there, because otherwise you just essentially ramp up Brock's price. Akanesh says, will we see Wade Barrett as a full-time performer in WWE? There are no plans for that at the moment. However, there were initially no plans for him to be a full-time announcer again, and there were initially no plans for him to be a part-time announcer again. So it's very much, they are evolving the situation with Wade Barrett based on an evolving situation when it comes to NXT. If they need him to be a full-time performer, they will offer him a contract, but there are no plans for that at the moment. That is a rapidly changing situation, though. Andrea Bregu says, will Vince McMahon get involved in NXT versus AEW's ratings war? Will WWE stop releasing wrestlers? Via the first, Vince McMahon has been involved in the NXT AEW war pretty much since its inception. He has been giving advice and talking to management there about what's going on the whole time, and that includes, for example, moving Charlotte there briefly. When it comes to will WWE stop releasing wrestlers, it's hard to say. We have another third quarter earnings report coming up soon, and they have made a number of releases since then. It has been reported, though, that wrestlers have not been released, and to my knowledge, that is true. Justin Marcus Williams says, when are the 60-plus releases coming out? It depends if they want to come out. It is entirely up to them. Nickun says, this is the first time in a while matches have been advertised for Raw. I think it will be good. They've certainly advertised in advance. The reason for that is because it's Raw in your face, which is a special branding they are using. Today is the return of Monday Night Football in the United States, so the WWE are genuinely concerned that they will have a significant hit in the ratings. They are trying to book a show with that in mind. Kevin Abro says, you have an update about Ronda Rousey. I don't. Ronda Rousey's contract to wrestle essentially was just the 12 months between the first WrestleMania she wrestled and the second WrestleMania, which is why we haven't seen her wrestle since, and why she is openly talking about in interviews, if I come back, because at the moment she is not with the company, despite the WWE announcing via press release that she was with the company until April 2021. There are a number of options that they had to extend that contract, but to my knowledge, that did not happen. She took some time off, and certainly with the pandemic at the moment, there is no plan to have her return because they don't want to be spending that much money right now. They want to be cutting costs instead. Pradier says, is Mojo Rawley still planned to be a part of Retribution? I'm not aware that Mojo Rawley is actually a part of Retribution. I believe he was simply put into that particular segment as a way of throwing people off the scent, as it were. The members of Retribution that I am aware of, 4 of them were there. Mia Yim, Mercedes Martinez, Dominic Dijakovic, and Dio Madden. Mojo Rawley, that is the only time he has been under the mask so far, and to my knowledge, he was simply told backstage, can you put this on? It'll throw people off. Ozzy says, you think Bayley will keep her championship after Clash of Champions? Absolutely, I do. I don't think there is any chance that she's losing it. Bobby Brunn says, who are they drafting? I cannot confirm any names at this time. Subesh says, is The Fiend going to Monday Night Raw? I cannot confirm that at this time. Jahesh Gadkar says, any news who is a mystery woman? News circulating that she is Carmella. As I mentioned earlier, I'll just recap this. It looks like Carmella. There are heavy rumors that it is Carmella. There is no confirmation that it is Carmella. Kevin Abro says, can the women main event WrestleMania again? Absolutely, they can. Ozzy says, bless you. Thank you, Ozzy. Payne Wrestling says, I think Ricochet is getting drafted back to NXT after his feud with the Hurt Business. That is very possible. There are a number of people who have said that they are looking to potentially move back to NXT. I did report late last year that there is a short list that Vince McMahon and Triple H keep of people who have asked to go back to NXT. That included Kevin Owens. I reported this before he appeared on NXT, and that includes people who've said it since, for example, Naomi. Anand says, do you think Sheamus will get a push considering his booking has been done a bit up and down? It depends what you mean by push. I don't think he's going to be in the World Championship scene for a while. If ever again, to be completely honest with you. But I think at the moment he's working to put people over. So in a way, he is getting pushed because he's getting a lot of TV time. AK Ray says, what's the best free promos I've seen? Yes, I did have a drink there to give myself some thinking time. I really enjoyed the promos in the lead up to the Miz versus John Cena in the mixed tag match, where it was the Miz and Maurice versus John Cena and Nikki Bella at WrestleMania. I want to say 32. I really enjoyed the promos there. They were electric. And John Cena has got some really good promos over the years. So too has John Moxley. His promos recently have been absolutely tremendous. I think back, and there are some that really stand the test of time. A lot of the work that The Rock has done, as well as Triple H's promo when he interrupted the wedding of Stephanie McMahon and Test. That was one of my favorite promos of all time. Like Shay says, what's your reaction of Alexa using Bray's finisher on Cross? Shock, surprise, joy. Pretty much those three things. It's a shame that Nikki Cross had to take it because obviously that's a breakup, as it were. But it did mean that she was able to defy so many more odds. She got attacked with a chair by Bayley. She got attacked by Alexa Bliss during the match with her sister Abigail on the outside, which hurts more, as we all know. And then she still won the match. Big moment for Nikki Cross. Justin has clarified update on the 60+ releases. I don't have any update, unfortunately. Information is coming out as it's coming out. I have been told by a couple of people that they've been released, but they've asked me not to make it public knowledge, so I have not made it public knowledge. I can confirm the release information that's already been put out there. I did chasing up afterwards and was told, yes, that's the case. But really, when it comes to the people who've been released, it is up to them whether they want to make that public knowledge. Because ultimately, right now, they are unemployed. And as someone who recently lost his day job, I know that doesn't feel good. So I don't want to be chasing people right now for comments. I don't. And I think it's shameful the people who have so far. John Elite says, will Roman still use his tactical vest when he wrestles, or will he still wrestle in a t-shirt? He did wrestle in a t-shirt this week, but it's not really wrestling in that he came in, hit a spear, and then that was it. He wears a tactical vest to hide a belt that he wears for medical reasons. So he should still wear his tactical vest, or he should wear a t-shirt with padding underneath to cover for that belt, or maybe just make the belt public information, because it's very important that he wears that belt. It's very important that he comes to wrestle in padding. And I think right now wearing the vest is a great idea because it will make people boo him. Ozzy says, why does the walrus look like Paul Heyman? Because it's a parody of Paul Heyman. It's intentionally meant to look as much like him as possible. Akane said there are many rumors regarding CM Punk. I'm not even going to read the rest of that. CM Punk has no interest in returning to wrestling. He has said that multiple times. And to my knowledge, there is no interest from him to return to the WWE. There is interest from the WWE. They have left the door open. They have said if he wants to make a phone call, they will invite him back. However, there is no interest from CM Punk in returning to the WWE. Benjamin Kimbrell says, how do they plan to use Mandy Rose in a storyline? I'm not sure. They've only just sent her over. There is a plan, but I don't know what it is. Kishan Prasad says, who is next to The Fiend? Roman has moved on to Jey Uso for the time being. The Fiend will play out his storyline of Alexa Bliss a little better. We'll see more going on with Mr. McBossman in the Firefly Funhouse. There will be a power struggle between Bray Wyatt and Wobbly Walrus. And then later on, he will be returning to the feud of Roman Reigns. So at the moment, he's not going to be in that ring that much. We haven't seen The Fiend in the ring all that much, to be fair. Jim Robertson says, Otis catches in on Drew or Roman? Possibly, yes. James McCrossen says, tough question, but do you see WWE ever putting women, aka Nancy Benoit, into the WWE Hall of Fame? I heard that Mick Foley and Jericho are trying to get her in. I don't believe they will. Because ultimately, while she had a big impact in WCW, I think there's a lot going on outside. I think when it comes to WWE, she didn't have that much impact in that particular show. So I think ultimately right now, there are women more deserving. And while they may be trying to sing her praise and get her in there, at the moment, I'm just not sure that's the intention. John Elite, I have already answered that question. Guys, I am still 3 or 4 minutes behind. There are a lot of questions. Please do bear with me and try not to repeat ask questions. Justin says, WrestleMania 33. I'd imagine that's in reference to the mixed tag match. Thank you for letting me know. Anon says, are there plans of Garza and Andrade split? There have been plans to have that happen since before WrestleMania, and they keep pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. Nick Hunter says, will this be a draft or a shake-up? They say draft. I suspect it'll be a shake-up personally because they've already made a lot of moves. Dylan Birch says Otis should cash in on Roman only to have Tucker turn heel on him, causing them to have a feud. I think there are too few tag teams right now and they can't afford to break people up. Akinich said, will Abyss wrestle in WWE? Any idea? There are no plans right now to have Abyss wrestle in the WWE. They want to work with the people they have, and Abyss is working as a producer and working a little bit with AJ Styles right now. Ben Wrestling says, I have a great question. Will they split the Usos from Monday Night Raw? They will not split the Usos. When Jimmy Uso returns, the Usos will return to being a tag team. Alyssa Stansbury says, you don't like the Steph Rollins. I said Steph there. Alyssa Stansbury says she doesn't like Seth Rollins' Messiah gimmick. They need to get rid. Doesn't understand it. Okay, so you just don't like it. That's a very successful gimmick at the moment. I'm a big fan of the Messiah gimmick personally, and I think it works brilliantly when it comes to Seth. JS says, any update on Velveteen Dream? He's currently in a feud with Kushida, is it? I believe so. Update on that, he's wrestling in NXT. That's essentially the only update possible. But Milligan says, will the feud between Mysterio and Seth Rollins ever end? It will. I just hope it ends sooner rather than later. I've had enough of this one. I think Dominic has debuted already. He's looked very good. I think he now should be working with a few different people. Aleister Black, maybe. That'd be fun. RH Parves says, will Roman versus Jey Uso be a squash match, or Roman use a low blow or some sort of heel move? There will be heel moves involved. I think distractions via Paul Heyman is more likely. Low blows, possibly. They are intending right now to make sure that when it comes to Roman, people will boo him. So it's not going to be a squash. Jey Uso will get his moment, but Roman will win convincingly. Ozzy says, do you think Sami Zayn is part of the group attacking on Raw? I do not. Sami Zayn is very much on SmackDown, and the group attacking on Raw are very much on Raw. Bobby Brunn says, do you have a favorite wrestler? At the moment, it is AJ Styles. It's also Seth Rollins, and I'm also a big Becky Lynch fan, but slightly down the rungs, as it were, to less prominent figures. I'm a big Dakota Kai fan. Like Jay says, what's the biggest rumor you wished was true, and which rumor you listened and laughed on it? I get told so many things that I listen and laugh at. Genuinely. I reported a couple of years ago, I think now, like a year ago, I should say a year ago, when Goldberg faced Dolph Ziggler at last year's SummerSlam. I was told that he wants to work with Ziggler because Ziggler doesn't weigh much. That made me laugh. I thought that's ridiculous. I reported it because of the constant urging, just report it. And then in an interview later on, he did state, him being Goldberg, that he wanted to work with Dolph Ziggler because he didn't weigh much. The wording was almost exact. So that was pretty much a direct quote. It must have been. So rumor, the world of rumors is strange. I'm constantly being told real things that I listen and laugh at. But there's a number of things which I have listened to and laughed at. Really, it depends how rumors are reported that makes me laugh. Biggest rumor I wished was true. It's tricky. You look at rumors recently that like Randy Orton winning the title. I wouldn't have had any issue with Randy Orton winning the title, but I didn't necessarily wish it was true. AK Ray says, who would you place with members in Retribution? Well, I know who the majority of the people under the masks are now. But when it comes to who I would put there in across brands, it depends, because the people who are there now, they don't seem to really fit the name Retribution very well. They really don't. Because what do they have to get Retribution for on the main roster? They've not even been there. Hard to say. We have 70 people watching at the minute. I'll be here another 17, maybe 18 minutes leading into the hour. So please do remember to get your questions in as quickly as possible. I will start to rapid fire through them if I fall too far behind. And to anyone who hasn't yet, please do remember to click like or click love. If you are on Facebook, you have that option as well to keep people coming in, to keep us growing. And remember to follow me on Twitter at Colohue, Colohue, and YouTube /Tom Colohue for more. I do this show for SmackDown on the same time on Fridays, so it's worth coming over and checking that out as well for the same thing, but when it comes to the blue brand. Nick Gunn says they are breaking all tag teams at the same time. Yeah, it's awkward, isn't it? Bit Milliken says, where has Jimmy Uso been? He's been injured. He'll be out until roughly January, which is roughly when the Usos returned last year as well. Norwich Cannon says, who do you think will take off the Raw title from Asuka? What's the plan in there for that? Hard to say. They need to build someone new up. I believe it'll still be Shayna Baszler, but with a draft coming, it's impossible to say. Ricky Pate says, is Reigns versus Uso leading to Rock versus Reigns at Mania? It's not leading to anything. It is just a one-time match and a one-time feud. It's leading to more heel Roman, if anything. Pain Wrestling says, I love Seth Rollins' Messiah because people think the Fiend is controlling him. I'm not aware of anybody thinking that, but it would certainly be interesting. I don't think there's any connection there personally. Lakshay confirms that Velveteen Dream is feuding with Kushida at the moment. I just wanted to make sure I got his name right. James O'Costin says, thoughts on Marty Jannetty's crazy talk that he may have killed someone. I think the police should be reading his posts and the police should be investigating his claims. If they find nothing, fair enough. Then it's just crazy talk and people should stop listening to him. But I think they should definitely be keeping an eye on it just in case it's true. Anand says, any update on Ali? Last time it was speculated he was not happy with his booking. He has been quite open on Twitter that he's not happy with his booking. He appeared briefly. MVP was really fighting his corner, trying to make sure that he was involved. And MVP did get pinned by Mustafa Ali. And then Ali vanished. Real shame. Real shame. Ricky Pate says, have you been in the Thunderdome? I have not. I'm usually working during the show, so I can't sit and watch the Thunderdome. I can't be behind because I'm live tweeting. Also says, who do you think Retribution are? I can confirm, as I previously mentioned, me and Mercedes Martinez, Dominic Dijakovic and Dio Madden have been under the mask more often than anyone else. Nick Hunter says, was Kofi actually injured? He was not. He's just getting some time off. Jim Roberts said, when is the Queen coming back? I don't know for certain. Based on information I have, I expect it will be very close to the end of this year, beginning of next year. Anand says, do you think the hacker gimmick will return again? As per reports, it has been scrapped. I do. If you want to pop over to my YouTube, again, youtube.com/Tom Colohue, I do go in depth on a video there, which details everything that happened with the hacker. I will, in fact, find that video just so that people are aware of it and can essentially get all of the information from that, because I put a lot of information into that. A lot of time and effort was made. And I think really it's some of my best work. I really do. I would like to see more people watch it because I do think it's very worth a watch. And it does cover pretty much everything that happened with the hacker and everything that might happen with the hacker in the future. It's on 2.5 thousand views. It's one of my most successful. I will stick that right here in the comment section so that you guys can go and check that out. Nick Fun says, is Becky Lynch going to come back? I can't say for certain. No one can say for certain. To my knowledge, and based on interviews that she has undertaken, Becky Lynch does plan to come back once she has taken some time off to be a mum. However, I wouldn't hold her to it. I wouldn't be angry, certainly, if she didn't come back. If she doesn't want to, that is her choice. If she wants to, that is her choice as well. Kevin Abro says, what's going on with Bianca Belair and Naomi's push? They are not being pushed. That is their push at the moment. There were rumors that Naomi, it was her time to get a big push. That certainly does not seem to have happened. However, if she does get moved to NXT, which I believe is likely, then I think she will be pushed there. With Bianca Belair, she was there for a storyline with Ruby Riott. Essentially there she was covering for Liv Morgan, who had to take time off. So she was a last-minute call in for that. She was also involved with Zelina Vega, with the Street Profits versus Andrade and Garza. She hasn't been seen since. AK Ray says, what are your thoughts on Matt Sydal's debut at All Out? I actually liked it because it was memorable because of the botch. It's certainly memorable, and it is so unlucky. That is a once-in-a-lifetime botch, and it had to happen on the big stage in his debut. A real shame, a real shame. But I think he does add a lot. He is very much in AEW's wheelhouse. I don't know how strong his push is going to be. I think when it comes to AEW, they really need to start that second show because they have so much talent right now and they don't have enough to do with them. Alyssa says, do you think Seth Rollins versus heel Roman Reigns is money at WrestleMania? I think it's going to be a really hard job for to get a face Seth Rollins now. So I don't think that's going to happen. No. Ricky Pate says, I don't think the people in the mask now will be Retribution. That is certainly possible. Manny Santos, I'm late, so I'm not sure if this was asked, but is Mandy coming to Raw tonight? She is on Raw. I think it's likely that she will be there tonight to announce herself. But at the moment, to my knowledge, there is no storyline planned. They are working in a creative process. There is a reason she came across to Raw. They do have something for her. I just believe they will play out what is going on with Asuka at the moment first. Bill Milligan says, do you have any idea of when Sasha will return? Are they booking a feud between Sasha and Bayley? Sasha will be returning on this week's SmackDown. So not long at all. They are booking the feud. That's why they had the segment last week and the week before. They are very much booking the feud. It may not be immediate. I suspect it will be Hell in a Cell. Like Jay says, with Mandy on Raw now, her love angle with Otis is over. The angle is not over. I strongly suspect that when we have the draft, these two will be reunited. James McCosson says, my last question is there any update on Matt Hardy's health after that scary fall? Is he okay? Multiple people now have come out and said he's fine, that being Tony Khan and Chris Jericho. However, Rebbe Hardy, who would, as his next of kin, have access to his medical records, did state that it is 1,000% a concussion. So I can't update. I'm not sure. And Rebbe Hardy being in the position that she's in, that creates enough doubt for me. If she comes out now and says he was not concussed, then that confirms he was not concussed. However, he is taking some time off, and that's fair enough. Maybe after getting banged up a little bit, you just need some time to rest. I think as much as anything, his feud with Sammy Guevara didn't need to end. Nick Hunter said, will Retribution faces be revealed today? They will not. Ozzy says, do you think Carmella is part of Retribution? I absolutely do not. Jim Robertson says, is there going to be any more additions to the Hurt business? I tried to combine probable and possible there. Possibly there will. However, I think they need to get out of the very small mini division that they're in right now for that to happen. Tyler Wilson says, when is Ronda Rousey coming back? As soon as she wants to, and as soon as the WWE can pay her. Jay says, best heel and face of all time, according to you. Triple H, The Rock. And I will stand by that till the end of time. Bobby Brunn said, is Shane McMahon going to wrestle? Unlikely at the moment. He, to my knowledge, is not planning to step into Raw Underground. However, he may wrestle at some point. I don't believe he'll wrestle again, personally, but that's just my opinion. Michael Latina says, do you think Zelina Vega will become a full-time wrestler as opposed to a manager? I do not. I think she'll be a manager going forwards for pretty much the entirety of her WWE run, but may wrestle more in future as well. Akinesh says, Daniel Cormier to WWE. What about the rumors? There is interest from WWE. I can confirm there is interest from WWE in Daniel Cormier. However, right now, they are not willing to offer him a contract because they are trying to cut costs. So there has been contact. However, there has been no official contract offer. Bill Milligan says, I heard that Seth is supposed to be taking time off soon. Well, he's going to have a child soon, and typically at the moment, when someone has a child, they get time off. Bray Wyatt did, Daniel Bryan did. They are just a few examples. There are more. The Miz, I believe, took some time off. So yes, Seth is going to be taking time off soon. And Ann says, where is Braun? Is he on leave now for some time? He is. He's going to take a little bit of time off. It's a bit overdue, but also at the moment, there are no plans for him to return to the championship picture, and other people are still tied up. So it is going to be a little while before we see Braun Strowman, and when he comes back, it will be a little bit of a reinvention, possibly as a heel, and I do think he'll be working with Big E going forwards. Ricky Pate says, if Retribution or NXT guys, that's not a shocker. They could have Punk as a leader. They are absolutely not going to have CM Punk as a leader. CM Punk has no interest in wrestling in the WWE or returning to wrestling. Tyler Wilson says, once again, when is Ronda Rousey coming back? When she wants to come back and when the WWE is willing to pay her. It's that simple. Ricky Pate says, I would have kept Sasha off for a month. I probably would have kept her off a little bit longer, but I don't know if she's definitely going to be there, as it were. Jayesh Gadkar says, any wrestler name you thought it doesn't suit him or her? Good question, that. That's a good question. There was a few examples. Juice Robinson's name when he was in NXT didn't. I can't even remember it at this point. Didn't we have someone called John? There are many examples, a lot of them in NXT. Andrea, I don't believe I have you blocked. I don't recall seeing your name on Twitter before. I just recall you from Facebook. But if you can't find me, I will drop a link into the chat so anyone can. If you see that I've blocked you, I will look into that, because if I have, it's for a reason. But obviously, if I'm talking to you here and you seem like a decent enough person, so I can't imagine why I would have you blocked. So probably unblock you if I have you blocked, which I found unlikely. Ricky Pate says, so Otis is going to try and cash in on Orton after he wins the title. I have not heard that. Ricky Pate believes Carmella is a mystery woman. She may be. And Barbara Brunn says, thank you so much for answering my questions. You are very welcome. I don't answer every question. Some questions, as I'm sure people are realizing, simply is a situation whereby I can't answer every question. And a lot of them I have repeated. Like I've been sat here and I've answered the same questions 3 or 4 times quite a lot. There will come a time when I can't do that, and I have to say to people, you're going to have to watch again. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to deter people. I still have just under 100 people here, And I do get a boost of viewers every time someone does a like or a love. So please do remember to do that. Remember to follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Colohue. The link has just been posted in the chat. And follow me on YouTube at youtube.com/Tom Colohue for more news like this. Alyssa says, who will win the steel cage match? My suspicion is that the winner will be Dominic Mysterio because of accidental interference from Buddy Murphy. Also, all of Dominic's family can get involved now. Kevin Abro says, do you have any update about Tessa Blanchard because Raw needs some star power? I don't have an update. I don't believe there has been any formal contract offer to Tessa Blanchard at this point. However, I know there has been contact between Tessa and the WWE, and I know a number of people in the WWE are suggesting to management that they sign Tessa Blanchard. So I think it's likely we will see her in the WWE, but right now I cannot sit here and say that she has signed. Ricky also says Retribution could be some of the released guys. I've spoken to several released WWE superstars who have told me they have no interest in returning to the company, so I found that very unlikely. James, I'm not going to bring that up on the page. I'm just going to say I have absolutely no idea because really I would have to dig into CM Punk's mind to answer that one. Todd Tate says, when is Brock Lesnar coming back? Same as Ronda Rousey. When he wants to come back, when WWE can afford him. Right now, WWE are looking to essentially cut costs. That is one of the reasons that Brock Lesnar is not currently signed. However, Vince McMahon trusts Brock Lesnar not to sign anywhere else. Like Jay says, AEW is like PSG of football with so much money invested in WWE is like Real Madrid of football with history. If you don't agree, which club would you denote with AEW and WWE? Real Madrid spends a ton of money every single year. So I think that's actually very good and very apt because they're both as bad as each other when it comes to spending money. Real Madrid might have history, but they also spend way more money than almost every other club. So sometimes you do buy success, and WWE have done that in the past as well, yes. And Anne says, do you think WWE will book Charlotte to break Rick's record for most number of championships instead of Cena and Orton? If they do, it will be unfair for both Cena and Orton. Would Cena and Orton agree with you? You can't be sure. Would Ric Flair agree with you? You can't be sure. As I did mention a bit earlier, so again, I'll just quickly recap this. I have reported John Cena does not want to break Ric Flair's record. I reported that late last year, I believe it was. Randy Orton may do, but yes, I believe Charlotte will be the one. Jamie Morrison says, do you think that Balor is due another main roster run? I do believe that Finn Balor has no interest in returning to the main roster at this time. I have reported previously, and it has been confirmed in an interview by Sportskeeda and Digital Spy Stephanie Chase, who you can check out her YouTube at Stephanie Chase Wrestling. She did interview Finn Balor, asked particularly about the Demon King. I reported that there was no plan for NXT to use it, and it was up to Finn Balor if he wanted to use it in future. He confirmed that, in fact, used the same words that I did on the main roster. The Demon King paint was a crutch. Again, it's much like the Goldberg thing I mentioned earlier. Sometimes I get a direct quote and I just lock out, as it were. Always makes me laugh. Ozzy says, watch Tom after SmackDown on Friday. Yes, after SmackDown on Fridays, immediately after the show, we have Smack Talk right here on the Facebook and YouTube of Sportskeeda. That is with my colleague Rick Ucchino, who you can also follow at Rick Ucchino. Ucchino is spelled Ucchino. Akine says, thanks for clearing doubts, and so give me your Instagram ID. If you just search my name, Tom Colohue, on Instagram, you will find me immediately. You can follow me there. I don't post often, I will admit that, but I am working on it. I'm not great at Instagram because I'm not photogenic. And, you know, this ain't a selling point, you know? Jim Robertson says, how long will Cross be out for injury? For shoulder injury? Not sure. Can't confirm for certain. I believe, based on the medical reports that have come out, it will be roughly a year. Andrea Bregu agrees that Sportskeeda's show after SmackDown is awesome. That is Smack Talk. I do suggest checking it out. James McCrossan says, I understand. Do you see Kane returning anytime soon? And is it possible that we will get a Mark Henry versus Keith Lee match? Mark Henry infamously does come back to put people over. I am attempting to find a way to get in contact with Mark Henry at the moment. I would really like to interview him. If any of you know the guy, please do let him know. Kane, yes, possibly. He's another one of those who returns sporadically, but right now they're not doing many guest spots, as it were. They're not having many people come in because they are trying to keep a closed set as much as possible. So not anytime soon, but certainly possibly. We're in the last minute, so I'm going to wrap up with quick fire at this point. Do you think Seth Rollins will ever main event WrestleMania? Yes, I do. Technically, he has once, but he was cashing in a Money in the Bank. He is good enough to do it. Ricky Pate says, how do you get all these inside sources? A lot of talking to people, a fair bit of luck, and a lot of being very careful what you report. I've interviewed a lot of wrestlers, and via an end result of that, sometimes you get talking to wrestlers, but also quite a few of my sources are not wrestlers. It is people who are possibly on creative side, on production side. I can't say who they are, and I will not be confirming. However, I will say that I don't have the level of sources that quite a lot of other people have, which is why if you see the news I report, it is rarely a massive spoiler, something about to happen right now and so on and so forth, because even if I do get big news like that, I can't immediately confirm it. I was the first one to report that Becky Lynch, after getting the punch from Nia Jax, would have to undergo a fitness check before she would be allowed to compete at Survivor Series. But unfortunately, because of my limited audience, it did not go big, and I was not able to confirm the result of that fitness check, which of course means that I couldn't further the report. Anan says, recently Tony Khan said the AEW All Out was way better than WrestleMania or something similar along those lines. Can't recollect. Also taking a statement on your take on All Out. Well, what he actually said, I can confirm this, in a conference call, was that Double or Nothing blew WrestleMania out of the water. What he was saying there was in reference to the safety checks. That is the safety checks in question. When it came to COVID safety, Double or Nothing blew WrestleMania out of the water. That is what he was saying. He was not talking about wrestling quality. A lot of people have taken just the quote. I am guilty of that. I took just the quote to ask people's opinions of it without focusing on that. Afterwards on Backstage Heat, which is the twitch.tv/backstage team show we do on Saturdays, I did clarify that point in case anyone missed it. Jamie Morrison says, will Otis be able to cash in Money in the Bank contract for the tag team titles? He will not. That has never happened, and it is not in the contract. Todd Tate says, is Sasha Banks going to retire soon? No, she is absolutely not. Aaron Corbin says, what's next for Raw? What's next for Raw Extreme, like ECW? Possibly. I mean, Raw right now is in your face. Showmake says, when is Jeff's contract ending in WWE? Can he go to join Matt Hardy in AEW? If he chooses to run down his contract, he can go anywhere. If AEW then make him an offer, he can certainly go there. His contract, to my knowledge, runs for about another 18 months. James McCrossan says, I know Mark Henry has a Twitter account. He does, but I don't want to just bombard him with, can I interview you? Can I interview you? Can I interview you? I find that very uncouth when I can, for example, go to a website, find an email inbox, or talk to people he works with, maybe try and get an email inbox and find an interview that way. Ricky Pate says, will you be interviewing The Rock anytime soon? No, I will not. I am not that big time. So we have reached the hour and gone just over, so I am calling it there. Thank you for the 225 engagements. We have 82 people left. Please do remember to click like, love, and anything like that, because that does help us grow here at Sportskeeda, and that helps me drive traffic as well to my YouTube, to my Twitter, which is twitter.com/Colohue, youtube.com/Tom Colohue. You can subscribe then as well. I am trying to go full time. However, in order to do that, I need people watching my stuff. I don't want to put news behind a paywall. I know that works for some people, but it doesn't work for me. So if you would like to support me, instead of donate here, donate there, please just go to my YouTube and watch what I'm doing there. Go to my Twitter and follow there. That makes a big difference to me. You can also, of course, follow Sportskeeda and watch these shows here. Thank you to everyone who has asked questions. Thank you to Showmake and Akinesh. Apologies for getting them wrong there, for saying it was a great show. I really enjoy these shows. I've been doing them every week for about 4 months now, and I really enjoy them. If you like more like this, I do a SmackDown preview just like this at the same time on Fridays on my YouTube channel. You can follow at youtube.com/Tom Colohue. I have been Tom Colohue, senior journalist here at Sportskeeda, #top guy. I can't keep a straight face saying that, #top guy. And thank you to everyone who has joined me today. Have a good day.